Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a really powerful method for actually learning complex historical texts, not just reading them. And we're going to use a fascinating lesson on the Quran's Surah Al-Baqarah by Najla Muhammad as our guide.
You know that feeling, right? We've all been there. You read these ancient scriptures or some really dense literature, but how do you actually connect with it? And more importantly, how do you remember it later? Well, the technique we're looking at today is all about shifting from just passively reading to actively and lastingly understanding.
So, our source material lays out this incredibly clear, structured process for getting a deep understanding of verses 85 to 90 of Surah Al-Baqarah. And the cool thing is, this isn't just about memorization for its own sake. It's an approach you could really adapt to any challenging text you want to tackle.
Think of it like a three-stage rocket to really getting it. First, you got to get a grip on the individual words. What do they actually mean? Second, you figure out the bigger story they're telling. And third, you use a very specific drill to lock it all into your memory for good.
Okay, so before we can even begin to see the full picture, we need to understand the building blocks. The very first step in this whole method is to pull out the key terms and really define them. Let's look at a few examples straight from the verses. So this first word, it's more than just sending messengers. The source explains that it implies this continuous, unbroken chain of prophets coming one after another right after Moses. And that creates this powerful feeling of uninterrupted divine guidance, which is absolutely crucial for the story that's being told. Right, so what did these messengers bring with them? Al-Bayinat. The text makes a big deal about this. People like Jesus didn't just show up with a message. They came with clear, tangible evidence. Miracles that were supposed to be undeniable proof of where they came from.
Now, this word is interesting because it represents the excuse for disbelief. The people in the story claimed their hearts were gulf, basically covered or sealed off, which meant they were, physically incapable of getting the message. It's a pretty clear way of trying to avoid taking any responsibility.
And this gets to the real motivation underneath it all. The source points to Bogyan as the absolute core reason for rejecting the truth. It wasn't because they didn't understand or because there wasn't enough proof. It was just pure envy that the revelation was given to someone else. A very, very human emotion, isn't it? Okay, now the method totally shifts gears. Once you have a solid handle on the vocabulary, you can go from looking at individual words to seeing the whole story. And the big insight here is that these texts aren't just lists of rules or facts, they're stories. The teacher in our source material calls this whole process creating a mind map. You see, these verses aren't just a random jumble of statements. They're built very carefully to create a narrative. This mind map idea is all about tracing the actions of the children of Israel, the excuses they gave, and then the unavoidable consequences. So this mind map connects all the dots, and suddenly you see this crystal clear pattern emerge. They broke a promise, they were arrogant toward the messengers, they made excuses, and it was all driven by envy. This escalating behavior leads straight to a really severe outcome, and it perfectly spells out the story's main conflict. And this phrase, wow, this is the story's climax right here. The source explains that this isn't just about one mistake and one punishment, it's about a compounding of actions, like rejecting the Torah and then also disbelieving in the Prophet Muhammad, that results in compounded divine anger, wrath upon wrath. So the really critical point here is this powerful debate that's constructed right inside the text. On one side, you have the claims and the excuses, and on the other, you have the text's logical takedown. It challenges their whole claim of being faithful to the Torah by asking a killer question. If that's true, then why did you kill the very prophets who brought it to you? All right, let's bring it home with the final stage. Once we've decoded the words and we've mapped out the story, we understand it. But how do we make that understanding permanent? Well, the focus now shifts to a really specific, practical memorization drill. And the key takeaway is that repetition has to be intentional, not just mindless. See, this isn't just about repeating something over and over again like a robot. It's a deliberate practice that you do after you've done the hard intellectual work. First, you get rid of distractions. Simple enough. Second, you internalize it by reading silently. And third, you engage your voice, your ears, your whole body by reciting it out loud. It's a simple, actionable plan for pretty much any learning process. So when you put it all together, this three-part method shows that true memorization isn't just about being able to parrot words back. It's about deeply internalizing a text's structure, its narrative, its core message, and making it a real, permanent part of how you understand things.
So, by breaking down any complex text into these three stages, its words, its story, and a dedicated practice of repetition, we can actually uncover connections and meanings that we would totally miss with just a quick surface read. It basically transforms learning from a chore into an act of real discovery. So, the only question left is, what text are you going to apply it to next?